In 2012, a 54-year-old Olympus engineer named Toshiro Yamada opened his redundancy letter. He had worked at the company for 26 years. He had done everything the right way, contributed to his pension, bought company shares because his manager told him they were safe, watched his retirement savings slowly build inside one of Japan's most respected companies. What he didn't know, what none of the 37,000 Olympus employees knew, was that the company he had built his future on had been secretly insolvent for over a decade. The board knew, the auditors knew, the chairman knew. The one man who tried to stop it was fired before anyone outside that building found out. His name was Michael Woodford. He had been CEO for 14 days. This is the story of how Olympus hid $1.7 billion for 13 years, who protected it, and what it cost the people who never got to be in that room. Olympus was founded in 1919. For most of the 20th century, it made two things that defined it: cameras and medical endoscopes, the flexible devices used in hospitals to look inside the human body. Olympus controlled 70% of that global market. Hospitals in 100 countries depended on their equipment. This was a company people trusted with their lives, literally, which is exactly why what happened inside it was so hard to see. In the late 1980s, Olympus made a mistake that many Japanese companies made at the time. It speculated during Japan's asset bubble. When the bubble collapsed in the early 1990s, those investments lost massive value. In any normal company, you write down the loss, take the hit, and move on. Olympus's executives couldn't do that. In Japanese corporate culture, admitting that level of loss meant admitting the board had made catastrophic decisions. It meant shame. It meant the kind of public reckoning that careers and companies don't survive. So they made a different decision. They decided to hide it. The method was called tobashi. It means to fly away in Japanese. You move the bad investments off your official books, transfer them to shell companies, third-party funds, empty entities that exist only on paper. The losses don't disappear. They just become invisible on your balance sheet. Your accounts look clean. Your share price holds. And somewhere in the background, the whole quietly grows. For 13 years, Olympus kept the whole flying. Between 2006 and 2008, Olympus made 4 acquisitions. 3 of them made no strategic sense at all. A recycling firm, a medical waste company, a cosmetics maker, none connected to cameras, none connected to endoscopes. The combined price, $773 million. The combined value written off within a year, most of it. Nobody on the board asked why, but the 4th acquisition is the number that should stop you cold. Olympus bought a British medical device company called Gyrus for $2.2 billion. That was a large deal. Large deals have advisory fees, typically 1 to 2% of the transaction value. Standard, expected. Olympus paid advisory fees of $687 million. $687 million to a firm registered in the Cayman Islands. A firm with no employees, no office, no operations beyond this single transaction. A firm that ceased to exist the moment the wire transfer cleared. The auditors saw the fee. They signed off. The board saw the fee. They approved it. Not one person filed a question in writing. Not one regulator flagged it. Not one analyst at any of the 14 investment banks covering Olympus asked publicly where that $687 million went. It had gone to pay off 13 years of hidden losses. And everyone who was paid to notice didn't. The man who promoted Michael Woodford was named Tsuyoshi Kikukawa. He had been chairman of Olympus for 6 years. Respected, decorated, the kind of man whose photograph appeared in the annual report next to words like integrity and legacy. He was the one who decided that Olympus needed a global face. An outsider who could signal to international markets that the company was modernizing. He chose Woodford specifically. Whether Kikukawa believed that Woodford would simply not look at the acquisition history, that he would be too new, too unfamiliar with Japanese corporate culture, too focused on the operational side to notice the numbers, nobody has said clearly. What is clear is what happened when Woodford did look. Michael Woodford had spent 30 years at Olympus. He started as a sales rep in Britain, worked his way up through the European operations. He wasn't a typical Olympus executive. He was blunt, direct, the kind of man who read things carefully and asked questions out loud. 2 weeks into the job, he read an article in a small Japanese financial magazine called Facta. They had published a detailed investigation into the acquisitions, the fees, the shell companies, the valueless targets. Woodford read it on a Tuesday. By Thursday, he was asking the board to explain it. He went to the auditors. They were unconcerned. He went to board members. They were evasive. He wrote a formal letter to Kikukawa, the man who had hired him, the man who had told the world that Woodford was the future of Olympus, demanding an independent external investigation. He sent the letter on a Friday. On Monday, Kikukawa convened an emergency board meeting. Woodford flew to Tokyo, assuming he would chair it. Instead, he was walked into a room where Kikukawa sat at the head of the table. The vote was called. It was unanimous. The man who had chosen Woodford to be CEO was the first to vote him out. His company car was taken. His access was cut. He was handed a plane ticket back to London. He had been CEO for exactly 14 days. Kikukawa held a press conference. He told reporters that Woodford had been removed due to, and this is the actual phrase he used, cultural differences with management. He said nothing about the $1.7 billion. Woodford didn't get on the plane. He went to Japan's financial regulators, then the FBI, then the press. He gave every document he had to every journalist who would take the meeting. He sat in front of cameras and said clearly, "Olympus hid $1.7 billion in losses and fired me for finding it." Olympus denied it. The share price lost half its value in days. Then the denials became impossible to hold. In November 2011, less than a month after Woodford was fired, Olympus admitted everything. Chairman Kikukawa resigned. The president resigned. The executive vice president resigned. 3 executives were eventually arrested. In 2012, Olympus pleaded guilty. The fine was $7 million. On $1.7 billion hidden for 13 years, the fine was $7 million. The 3 executives who were arrested received suspended sentences. Not one of them went to prison. Woodford was offered his CEO position back. He said no. He filed a wrongful dismissal claim and settled for a reported $15 million. Was this criminal or just incompetent? 13 years, 4 boards, multiple auditors, 14 investment banks. Not one of them asked where $687 million went. Drop your verdict in the comments. Here's what this story actually teaches you. Woodford found $1.7 billion in hidden losses in 14 days. The board had 13 years and didn't look. That's not an accident. That's a system. Japanese corporate boards at the time were not designed to challenge executives. They were designed to support them. Auditors didn't earn fees by finding problems. They earned fees by maintaining relationships. And a foreign CEO writing formal letters demanding explanations was so far outside expected behavior that the board's first instinct wasn't to investigate. It was to remove the problem. Every institution has a version of this, a culture that makes certain questions difficult to ask, numbers that are difficult to scrutinize, people who are too senior to challenge. The fraud doesn't survive because nobody can find it. It survives because the system isn't designed to reward finding it. Woodford found it in 14 days because he was the only person in the building who didn't already know the rules. Sometimes the outsider is the only one willing to look. Toshiro Yamada lost his job in 2012 when Olympus's share price collapsed after the admission. He lost roughly 40% of his pension value in the same month. The 3 executives who authorized the cover-up received suspended sentences. Not one of them went to prison. Michael Woodford settled his wrongful dismissal claim for a reported $15 million. And Olympus, the company, still exists, still makes cameras, still controls 70% of the global medical endoscope market. The hole closed. The people who dug it walked away. Are you reading the footnotes?